There we go. This is the show. This is my creative name for this series that I'm going to start here. And I'm David Dadakian. For those of you who may or may not know, I run Eat, Drink, Rhode Island. And with me tonight is Chef Derek Wagner. He is the chef and owner of Nick's on Broadway. How many years now? 18 years? 19?
Yeah, this is, we hit 18 years in February. So we're going into our 19th year now.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. I know it's been a long, interesting path to get here.
Especially the last couple of months, for sure.
Well, yeah. We'll talk on that. But first, I want you to, because I think this is kind of my festival replacement. And as you know, having done demos at the festival for years, we get a wide range of people. A lot of people who know your place, know who you are, know what you do, and then a lot of people who just love food and come to the festival. So tell us a little bit about there you go, a little love for Sean, a little love for Revival. Tell us a little about you and what you've been doing, the type of food you do, the type of places you have, and just a good overview.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Wagner. I'm chef and owner of Nick's on Broadway, as David said. Formerly chef owner of Nick's on Westminster, which we have, we can touch on later, but we've had to close there. And also a very active and passionate member of Chefs Collaborative and James Beard Impact Programming. So I'm, again, the chef and owner operator at Nick's, and I have been there for we opened, as David said, in February of 2001, so going strong on almost 2 decades. And what we do there is we just try to cook and source well and cook just authentic, delicious, hopefully fun food. And big part of what I do is trying to support our local community, and that includes growers, producers, vendors, small businesses, and whatever we can do to support the community and raise up Rhode Island and Providence and New England.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a small ecosystem here. Yeah.
It is.
So let's tell everyone, I know, because I've known you for years, and I've run into your family all the time at the restaurant, and also at the farm, because they happen to be related with the farm at Blackbird Farm that I work at. You're one of how many children?
I am the youngest of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my mom is one of 7, and my dad is one of 8. So there's lots of big families.
And Jerry and Joanne are always around,
always
around Nick's. It's they're a vital part of the community there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you have yourself.
I have 2 lovely little daughters, and my wife Katie. My daughters Essie and Piper. They're 4 and 2.5. She'll actually be 3 in just a couple weeks. So yeah, 2 little ones that we have at home that I adore, that are big eaters, and I'm very happy and thankful for that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, you're in for some adventures ahead of you. Trust me. As my father of 12 and 10, the attitude has come on strong, and I've seen pictures of you too. They're going to follow strongly, I'm sure.
The attitude is already there. They are large and in charge. There's no shortage of sass at the Wagner household. That's for sure.
Yeah, I understand that. Believe me, I understand.
My 2-year-old tells me the other day, she looks at me and she says, perfect context, "Daddy, are you kidding me?" Like that, like just.
Oh yeah, no, and it's only gonna get bigger. Trust me, much bigger. All right, so yeah, let's talk about Nick's. You bought the spot from Nick, from the original owner. Tell me how did that all came about years ago?
So the long, shortish version, I was in college here at Johnson Wales, late night diner, Nick's on Broadway, or Nick's. We used to just call it Nick's, and it was owned by Nicholas Sammartino. Was the at the time was in his 70s, a World War II vet, about 4'5", about 10 feet of attitude and energy. Just one of the biggest personalities. Um, we used to eat there late at night. He opened at, he wouldn't open until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then would stay open till 11. Now, it wasn't always that way. I think he'd done that later in his tenure. It originally was more family, but back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s was more daytime diner. And then as he got on in years and the city was starting to change, he opened up late night. So that's how I found it. And would eat there late at night, working in the restaurant business, getting out of work late,
And were you working at Centro at the time?
I was working at Agora.
Well, wasn't Centro, right? Exactly.
Which is now Centro, which is the Omni Hotel, which was formerly the Westin Hotel. When the Westin built and opened there, they opened a flagship restaurant called the Agora, which was separate. It was actually Frank McClellan from Les Baillet, his chef de cuisine, longtime chef de cuisine, Casey, came down, opened up the Agora. And then I got a job there in 1996 and worked there under Casey for about, he was there with me for another 4 years. And then I stayed for another couple of years. After he left, I took over as chef there and then stayed there for another year or two and until I decided to leave and put some stakes in the ground for myself, which I ended up finding Nick's. I was walking home. I had since moved into the neighborhood. One night I was walking home late and I passed the window. I saw Nick there. It wasn't quite 1 o'clock, so he wasn't open yet, but he was sitting down. And he saw me walking by and he just sort of waved me in. And he opened the door. I came in. And he didn't, he was such a fiery, feisty person. And it was the first time I saw him and he seemed really somber, kind of down. And he just said, I don't think I can. I said, are you okay, Nick? He said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And now, mind you, he was 79 years old, working by himself,
Wow.
running an 18-seat diner by himself. And, I had left my job. I was working on my house, trying to figure out what I was going to do. This is circa 2001. And I don't know, a light bulb went off and I said, you know what, maybe let me see what I can do. I was 23, I think, at the time. And I decided to take a chance and I scrapped up some money together and took over his lease. And I was going to come up with some sort of like your show. I was going to try to come up with some really cool, awesome name for this restaurant. And after cleaning it and working on it for months and months, I just, coming up with all these different names and trying to think of what am I going to call it? And I ended up after spinning and spinning, just kind of going, you know what, like, it's my neighborhood. It's an old neighborhood. I'm going to pay a little homage to Nick and I'm just going to keep the name. And I was 23, 24 years old. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't, it was a very different time then. And in terms of industry and trends and what was happening. And what I did was not common at that time.
Right.
And, now it's a little bit more commonplace for people to open shop, small owner operators, stuff like that. But at that point that was not common. And I don't know. I felt it felt right to keep the name and I just kept it. And here we are.
Yeah.
20 years later.
And it took a particular food writer in this town how many years till she realized your name wasn't Nick?
Oh, that's okay. That's
okay. It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I'm not saying that to pick. I'm saying that because it's funny. It's
I used to, Folly of Youth. I used to get so fired up if people would, call me Nick. And I'm like, my name's not Nick. But after a couple of years, you kind of realize, like, well, you named a restaurant a name yourself. So
right, exactly.
And it just sort of, became funny when now people in my family will call me Nick sometimes, and it's okay. It's all good.
So now you've been in business, almost 19 years, like you said, and definitely a pioneer here in trying to source as much possible as
Mhm,
you can locally.
mhm, mhm.
And that's where we first encountered each other. God, 10, 11 years now, maybe longer. I don't know.
Yeah,
With the inimitable Anne-Marie Bouthelette of Blackbird Farm.
the enigma, and
Yes. Who I talk to almost every day.
on the entire
And
planet.
she loves you,
Yeah, and I love
loves,
her back.
loves your place, loves everything about it. As do so many of the purveyors that you work with, because
Yeah,
you do it right.
I try.
You try hard to to get everyone in there. So go through how you've created some of these relationships over the years, and what you've really focused on.
Well, when I was a young cook, and it was the early mid '90s here in Providence, and Casey and Bruce from New Rivers. You know, I got in. Um, I got the opportunity to work with some of these chefs that were really in their prime, and I was so lucky to be able to pick their brains and kind of learn from their experiences and what they were doing. And at the time, California cuisine and not necessarily sourcing local, but like sourcing really fresh and in season. And that's when in season and trying to find local ingredients in season in some way what became really I think when it really started to root hold in professional American cuisine landscape, fine dining and dining in general, definitely at a fine dining level at that point. And I don't know, those really stuck with me. Those some of those principles, some of the things that I learned growing up, some of the things that I've learned along the way, and then also just like being here in Rhode Island and being a native Rhode Islander and growing up in Apple Valley and thinking about, I think, like in the fall, it starts in the fall. Where it's just like I want apple cider, I want apples, I want things that like I grew up with. I'm gonna open a place, um, and I want to express some of the joys that I find in food. And at that point, I'd really gotten burnt out on sort of the power ego chef, and I had been doing fine dining for 6-7 years at that point, and I loved that the attention to detail, the attention to quality, and what we were doing. But in terms of like industry perspective or the accessibility to that food, there was a lot of pretension, and it was that to me, like, my family would have had a hard time going to eat where I was the chef at, not just price point wise, but more just like, not feeling
Yeah,
comfortable
right. The atmosphere and everything,
in the
right?
atmosphere. And um, to me, that was something that, bothered me, because the whole reason I got into food was because I loved it. And I remember, being the youngest, always hiding in the kitchen and wanting to be in the kitchen because it smelled delicious and mom was there or grandma or grandpa was there. And um, I just got enamored with that. It was just the epicenter of our home, and not just our home, but our, my grandparents' home on Sunday dinners and Sunday suppers, where like all the cousins would come over and everything centered around these meals, and they, were delicious, and they just imparted so much into me that I wanted to try to find a way to have my cake and eat it too. I want to cook at the level that I was cooking at, and have the attention to detail, but I wanted to make it feel like you were at your grandparents' house on a Sunday afternoon, and at that time, 2000, 2001, that was not really, those were very separate worlds. There weren't really, they weren't the counter spaces. There weren't the open kitchens where people could belly up to the bar and like talk to the chef. That wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
And it felt strange and hard to do, but like, it was something that I was passionate about. And of course other chefs across the country, obviously, it became a thing because people were feeling similar things where they wanted to reconnect with that breaking bread aspect, that sort of more familial comfort level of having really delicious food. And that, when I started to open Nick's, and I was trying to figure out exactly what we were going to do and what we're going to be about, and what we were going to serve. And I'm just, again, like, thinking about, like, if I'm not going to make it, I want to source, or if I'm going to buy something, I want to try to buy things that I believe in, and buy things that I care about, or buy things that bring those nostalgic, um, feel good moments that I had in my childhood, based around food and drink. And, one of them I have right here, little product placement, the Yacht Club.
There you go.
Um,
It's our
you
friend
know,
John.
yeah, my friend John. And, this is one of those, a perfect example, right? Where I'm like choosing something as simple where I'm like, okay, we need drinks. What are we going to carry for soda and water here? And again, 2001, like, you don't have Coke, you don't have Pepsi. And I just decided, like, I'm not a big place, I can't buy a lot of things, I can't, but I want to support and promote the things that make me feel like home, and make me feel like, um, that I remember these happy moments in my childhood. And every special occasion that we had growing up, whether it was birthday or first communion or a wedding or something, we have a barbecue in the backyard. Mom, or dad would drive to Centerdale and would get, a couple of the wooden crates and the big bottles of Yacht Club soda. And it was like, literally, as a kid, it was just like one of the highlights for us, that cream soda and birch beer and lemon lime and all these great flavors, and sarsaparilla. And to me, when I opened, it was just a no-brainer. I'm like, I want to serve that. I want people that aren't from here, or people that are from here, I want them to know that this is here and that this is special to me. And so now you take that and just apply that across the board, to, again, it started with like apples, right? Barden's Orchard for me, like, growing up in Greenville and Apple Valley, you have Jaswell's, you have all these great apple orchards over there. But I really love Barden's, and Sandy and Gil are great people, and they were that was just one of those things to me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just drive to the orchard. At that point, there was no infrastructure for buying,
Right.
There's no Farm Fresh, there's no online. There were not, farmers hadn't quite gotten as there was just a whole piece that wasn't there in terms of supply chain. So if you wanted something, you drove to the farm, and that's what you did. We didn't have like a green street, we didn't have a market where farmers were going to the market, like in New York, or Chicago, where there were already like tons of farmers in one place for restaurants to buy wholesale from. It just wasn't here.
Yeah.
So we would, I would just, if I wanted something, I would call, or I would just drive to a place and say, hey, like, do you have this? Can I get this? And it just, ingredient to ingredient, dish by dish, each season, looking for inspiration, wanting to have like a sense of seasonality, but also a sense of place. That was, I had a big chip on my shoulder when, I think I still do, but like, at that point, all the travel, tourism, food, media hadn't quite really exploded outside of the major market areas, right? So if you weren't in a major market area, you were not serious. Like that was which obviously is not the case, but that was sort of if you weren't in Chicago, if you weren't in San Francisco, if you weren't in New York City at that time, it was really hard to be taken, as a chef or as a hospitality career oriented person. It was like you had to go to the big city to make it. That was sort of you're right. The feeling, that was the feeling, whether it was true or not. That was sort of like the feeling that you were made to think on your climb up, on your way up, was that like, if you're not in one of these places, you're not at that level. Right. and I bought into that at an earlier age, in college and my earlier, years. And I planned when I left my other job to move to one of those cities. And for me, there was a whole moment, an epiphany moment, and I just fuck that. Like if I'm gonna do it, like I'm gonna do it here. I'm like I don't want to. I'm so, and I have obviously tons of chef and restaurant friends in Boston and New York and in Chicago. And so I love those cities. I love I love them. But at that point, I was just like, fuck that. Like I'm not, I don't have to go to New York. I don't have to go to Boston. I'm going to do it here. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it here. And so there was also this like strong urge to want to, make people see what I saw in Rhode Island and what I saw, like the food that I grew up eating and the places that I grew up around, and sort of this idea that, the French idea of terroir, and like trying to create, a sense of place, right? That which for me, there's so many reasons to support like local communities. And it's not about making your community better than another community, right? It's about creating diversity and creating a uniqueness that only occurs in this one place at this one time, right? And there are similarities across the board, but when you go to a specific place in the country, or the world for that matter, there's a uniqueness of time and place where it's like lightning in a bottle, right? And you might have similar ingredients or similar this, but proximity to the ocean, or proximity, temperature or agriculture, or biodiversity, there's going to be something unique of every shed and every place that you go to. And to me, as a curious person, as an eater, as a lover of foods, as a creative, as a artist, as somebody who just is inspired by beauty and curiosity, why wouldn't you want to eat like that, right? Why would you want to,
well, and also
I don't want to drive, I don't want to go to like 10 different states all across the country and have the same 3 things on the menu, right? Like it's boring to me. Like as much as there's some comfort in certain things, there's like a level of like, when I go there, I want to taste there.
Exactly. And that's, as we've said many, many times over the years, the beauty of our state is that, even though that supply chain has gotten a lot better and changed and improved over the years, it's still nice that you can go, 10, 15 minutes away to any farm pretty much, or even, 40 minutes down, South County and go to the docks or, meet someone that you want to have a conversation with about what they're either raising or catching or whatever it is. That's the beauty of Rhode Island. That's what we have.
And that's one of the things, growing up here, it was like, oh, Rhode Island, is that a state? Is that, long, like when, if we ever did travel, or if I was in scouting, I go to Yagu scout camp in the summer, and you'd have kids from all over the country, and they're like, and of course they're in Rhode Island at that point, but you still have, they would say, Rhode Island, Long Island, like it was like from places outside of Rhode Island, at that point, it was still like it create, 2000 or 19, 1990s, like, and people still were like, where's that again?
Yeah.
Is that part of Massachusetts? Is that part of Rhode Island? I mean, part of New York. And obviously, so much of that has changed now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, there's no question.
It's a smaller place, and so many of the things are, we often refer to in our conversations, like the economy of scale that was so against us for so long is now, it kind of feels like we figured out how to wear it and how to navigate it in a way where it's like, this is not a negative, this is a positive. I can, as a chef, as a business owner, I could go to the docks in half an hour from, 20 minutes from my restaurant, depending on where I'm going, 25 minutes. I can go to one of my farms in 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and still be in the city. You can be in in pastures or the city or the ocean, all, within 15 to 20 to 30 minutes of
Right.
of each other. And there's not a lot of places like that. And I mean, there are certainly other places, coastal places, that it can be like that. But in terms of a whole state, like, we are unique, and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
there's a lot of wonderful things that come from that.
Yeah, I mean, Buffoni's is a great example. I mean, it's right
Mhm.
there in Johnston. It doesn't really seem like that's the spot where they're raising chickens, and there's
Yeah.
this big chicken farm, and
Mhm.
and all the others we know. But I wanted to bring up because somehow, not somehow, you've actively cultivated this, but you've very much become, and I want to see if I can. Oh, Wild Colonial, nice, very nice,
Wonderful shout out to my Wild Colonial pint glass.
very nice. Let me see if I can share this here. Let's see if you can see this. Uh, can you see this picture
Yep,
I've put up
yep.
here? All right, so you've kind of become, you know, the seafood guy. I mean, really, it's true. I mean, we've got this event we did a couple of years ago with the Commercial Fisheries Research Foundation.
Mhm.
I've got a few pictures here that I took. Let me see if I can scroll through them. There we go. And you're
Breaking down some monkfish
there.
there.
You go, monkfish, exactly right. And then this is from my festival here, where I think you were doing scup or bluefish. I don't remember which it was last year.
I think it was scup.
I think it was scup, and you were showing how you even scrape it out there, and there's all sorts of uses for it. And then this guy here, why don't we talk a bit about Chef's Collaborative? Why don't we tell us a little bit about what it is and what you do, and I'm a huge supporter myself. I've been a member for
Remember? Yeah,
10,
absolutely.
10 years as well. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, tell us about Chef's Collaborative and the seafood work.
Yeah, I mean, so Chefs Collaborative, national nonprofit, very grassroots, especially right now. All volunteer, 100% volunteer, no professional staff right now. Just volunteer board, volunteer local leaders or chapter leaders across the country, um, and really a band of uh, a lot of owner operator, sort of cooks on a journey, people that are working submersed in the industry at different places, and just a way, sort of a now become even more virtual than physical, with the world that we live in now. But like this community that is grown out of that and out of the ideals of sourcing, conscientiously, really just conscientious operating, from a cook, from a farmer, from a hospitality professional, to also to the dining side for people to really embrace the impact of their decisions, and supporting seasonal, local, delicious, of course, but also just thinking more about the impact of where they're spending the money and how they're spending their money, and that they're not, voting with their dollars, if you will, and trying to use the power of food, in um, all its many facets, and harness that power and that energy to do good work, and whether that's supporting your local economies, to supporting earth and world health, to human health, to human welfare and workers rights and farmers rights, as well as when we talk about seafood, that's a great example of even going as far as talking about slave labor,
Right.
and criminal enterprises across the globe that are taking advantage of people that are at risk, and exploiting them for profit. There's a lot of that in the seafood industry, and sort of the root of it is traceability, right? Is understanding where the things that you're eating, the things that you're putting in your body, or when it comes to folks like me, like the things that we're buying and serving in our businesses, so that you all can put those things in your body. There's a responsibility that comes with that, to want to serve people the best things. And of course, first and foremost, I want them to be the freshest and most delicious things. But now beyond making them fresh and delicious, I also want them to be nutritious, and I also want them to be not just nutritious for your body, but right, to be nutritious for the community and be nutritious for the earth. And a silly way to say it, right? But it really is that simple. And like,
just very true.
Again, the impact, and the more you dig, right, the more you scratch, the more you dig, the more you find out, and the more you kind of connect the dots. And Chefs Collaborative was a way for me, when I was at that time in when I was first opening Next, and years after, when seafood was one of the biggest things. I grew up in here in Rhode Island, as I said, and on the coast, and going call hogging with my dad and my sisters, and going fishing. But when I wanted to buy and purchase fish, like professionally, right, like I would have to go through these fish houses or purveyors that were selling things that were from all other places in the world, but not from here. And at first, I just did what I thought I was supposed to do, and just, again, buy high quality, good seafood, and that's where it started. But then it was sort of like, again, when you get into like seasonality and getting into expressing a sense of place, and you start to ask questions, like, well, I really love to try to get some of this, or what do we have that comes from here? And I hit so many walls when it came to seafood, and so many walls that I started looking for help. And I found at the time the Chefs Collaborative in Boston at the time, some chefs that were trying to tackle some of the same issues. And I was put in contact with them, and I went to a meeting up there and just started talking, and found out that there were a lot of people that were like me, that were kind of asking questions and not getting answers, and just sort of felt really good for the first time to be around people that were trying to tackle some of the same issues and had some of the same questions. And it felt like a place that I felt safe and okay to like say, hey, I don't know how to do this, or what's the best way to do this, or do you guys have any answers for this? And that just sort of snowballed from there. And my interaction with the group and with the chefs just really intensified as I encountered so many challenges, as you do as a chef and as a restaurant operator, and then started to realize that I had a lot of things to share, and a lot of things that other people and other chefs and cooks and farmers around the country were also interested in, some of the things that we were doing here at the restaurant and in the community, and it just became this, again, very collaborative interaction and space where I was able to share and learn and grow. And it's just amazing experience. You've been to so many of the summits that we've had over the years, and
wonderful.
Just such a great place, and such a great experience to be around like-minded people, and people with other opinions and different views, but in a place of respect where food is important, and learning, and just learning. And
I want to show, if I can, I hope if this works, I want to show, so that first picture that I showed was from that CFRF event that we did at Nick's a few years ago. And let's see if I can do this. Let's see if it'll do it for me.
There's a lot of ways to cut a scup. The first thing I do, I'm going to turn this to you all so you can see it. Normally I would do this way, but the first thing I do, because I want to take the fillets off, is I'm going to find the spine, and I'm going to make an incision. Okay? What's important is that you don't go too far in, that you just make an incision and you just follow the spine. And then you can take the knife and just literally just follow the bones. Okay, so I'm just very gentle. I'm not pushing, just letting the knife find the bones. When it comes up, you can see that. That's my first cut right there. Before I go any further, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay.
So there's something that you've done many times. Obviously, when you do it, by yourself in the restaurant, you're going much faster. But you
sometimes, yeah.
yeah, we all make mistakes, but that's for the grind pile.
Chowder is a beautiful thing.
Or chowder, right? Exactly, the case of fish. But you've done a great job at educating, and that event that from that video was there were maybe 30 or 40 chefs there from around the state, around the area, that you were showing about scup, and scup's a great example of I know we've used different terms over the years. Trash fish was popular for a while, and I'm glad that one's kind of fallen to the side. But of all these other species that we should be trying and having here, especially here because we have them available to us.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other things you love to make there with different fish, not tunas and salmons?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, listen, I love tuna, I love salmon. It's delicious. The reason that we've fished it almost to extinction, right? Is because it's delicious. And but again, trying to find some more biodiversity and some more plate diversity, right? And some more uniqueness and sense of place, and things that are delicious, but also good for us and good for the planet, and support some of our local ecosystems. And Rhode Island, of course, being on the coast here in New England, we're so lucky. We're just absolutely blessed to have the biodiversity that we have here. And really, it takes folks, I think, coming from other places in the world and the country, to really open your eyes. And when they're, because I think a lot of people just take it for granted, and they grow up with it and they don't really know how special and how important it is. And like to be able to have, the shell fisheries that we have here, as well as Point Judith, and one of the most fertile fishing areas in the world, like right there at our back door. It's incredible. And scup is one of my favorites, and I think that's like the champion example of an underutilized species, formerly known as trash fish, and which is a really great provocative term that people hate now, but which was the intention, right?
Right, exactly. It served its point.
It's a lot of things, that's sort of one of the, I've had to answer so many hate mails and answers about that term over the last 10, 12 years. And, that was, again, like for people that don't know, that was the whole impetus. I remember sitting at the table in New Orleans with Evan Mallett and Rich Garcia and some of the other chefs that we were talking about seafood, and we're just like, like, where do you get this? Where do you get that? And of course, like the guys that were from New England, where we were kind of talking with each other and saying like, well, what are you using? Or what are you using? And at that time, and this is a long time ago, we were thinking about like, I want to have cooler ingredients. I want to have things that are like more local and expressive of where we're from. And how do we do that? And how do we get access? It was, access, first identifying what it is, and then how the hell do you get it? And who do you get it from? And how do you cook it? How do you work with it? And we were all encountering the same thing by, talking to our local fishermen and to our local fish houses and asking for things. And they kept saying the same term kept coming up. The fishermen, it's fucking trash. That's fucking trash. Why would you serve that? Why would you buy that? It's trash. I throw that overboard. We get rid of that. And they just kept saying that these fish were trash. These fish were trash. So the idea was that, no, these things are beautiful. Like these things are, this is incredible stuff. And comparatively, like pennies on the pound compared to some of the other species, in terms of access, and what you would pay for these things. And there was this whole issue of bycatch, and it's much more complicated and nuanced than what I'm kind of giving the speed Cliff Notes version. But, the idea that the fishermen didn't know that they could sell this, that there was a market for these beautiful, delicious fish, and that they considered it trash. Yeah. And that term came from the fishermen because they didn't think, and not out of malice or out of negligence, And that's also important to note too. It wasn't because they didn't know what they were doing. It's because, it's all about supply and demand in the market, right? And it starts with the consumer, right? And if people don't find value in something, right, it gets diminished. And now these fishermen are pulling up in the nets all these great, scup, butterfish, hake, whiting, monkfish, all these redfish, and skate wing is another great example. And either having to throw them overboard dead, right, or not get any money for them, pennies on the pound, and have it go into like some alternative use. And we just wanted to, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we're going to celebrate this stuff, right? And we're going to tongue in cheek, we'll call it, we're going to say, we're going to take your trash and we're going to make these incredible meals out of them. And we're going to show you how delicious this is. And it's just snowballed, and it really took off. And the dinner series that we were doing, trash fish dinners, the first one was, at area, at Michael's Leviton's restaurant. We did it in Cambridge. And it was such an incredible dinner. I still have a picture from it on my desk at work. And what a great dinner that was. And that's where I met Mary and met Larry and so many, and Michael Scalfo, and so many other great chefs that I love and that I'm friends with now. And, but that dinner series just blew up across the country. And then, of course, the term started to offend people as people started to get really into the movement. And so it's good. It was like, it actually, and what we completely embrace and celebrate is that it did its job, right? It did its purpose, got people to pay attention and to taste these delicious things. And then they just were out of their minds that it was being called trash, and
also how cheap it was,
and that was the goal, and so now we're here, and now we've done that, and now we try to use a happier term. We call it, underutilized or underloved fish, and we still have so many of those, right? Like the top most consumed fish in the U.S. You still tuna, salmon,
right, shrimp,
right? Tuna, salmon, shrimp, right? And
it's funny, even from a marketing perspective, I know we both have the Eat These Fish shirts, but do you remember in New York when Tim came from the EDF with those shirts? He had the giant stack of West Coast shirts, and you and me and a few of us were like, "Where's the East Coast shirts? We want East Coast shirts."
Come on, man.
Yeah,
I love Lincoln. I love Lincoln and all, but come on.
Right, exactly. We got the East Coast shirts, but it was just like, even from a market perspective, it was fun.
And that was a great time too. And that was good because it was like East meets West. And I remember I did a demo with Michael. And it was like he did, I did East Coast and he did West Coast, and we had a great fish demo, and I did monkfish for that demo in New York City, and that was a great event.
Yeah.
But for me, scup, all the different species of flounder, monkfish is one of my favorite. I've really been on monkfish a lot because it's just such a beautiful texture, and it's one of the very few fish that you can grill and slice. Unlike the steak fish, like tuna, swordfish, mahi, things like that. But it's just delicious and so expressive of of our ecosystem in here.
So I keep looking over here to the side. If people see me looking over there, it's because there's questions coming in on the Facebook, and we're going to get to those. I'm going to scroll back and ask some of those in a bit. So if you have questions out there, please put them in. We got almost 50 folks watching, so if you have questions, please put them in. And before I get to those questions, this has been a great conversation, and we've been it's fun and enjoyable. But how are things now? What do you want to say about right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's been nice to keep it. It's nice to keep it happy, and levity is so needed right now. It's crazy. It's I don't want to get you flagged on Facebook, but it's really fucked up. It's a strange time. It's a difficult time. The world is just on fire right now. And I know I'm smiling, but that's my defense mechanism is humor. Those of you that know me is that I just, I'll tell a joke in the middle of, the worst situation ever, because that's just how that's how I try to handle these things and smile. Because what else? It's if I'm not smiling, I think I'm going to cry. And that's kind of what the last 2 months have been like, as a business owner, as a hospitality, uh, you know, professional industry person, as an employer, as a cook, as a as a family member. It's just been a really challenging, difficult couple, couple of months, and this has been coming. This it started, I think, I would say probably late February, early March, when things started to get weird, like more weird than the summer. Late February, early March can be an odd time because you're out of the winter, or kind of the what people consider to be the winter, the fun part of the winter, the holiday season, Valentine's Day. And spring is like so close but so far away. So things are still icy, the ground's still frozen, the weather sucks. So February, March can be kind of tough anyway, from a consumer and from a restaurant, certainly from a sourcing perspective. But this year was really, really weird, and people were, consumer behavior was odd. And when the first cases started to come up, and of course, I'm not going to get into politics, but the political scene is also very polarizing and has people either glued to their TVs when events and primaries and things are happening, or just like hiding their head in the sand because they don't want to, because everything is just so polarizing and fucked up that, like, it's tough to take sometimes and people just need a break. But when the first cases started to hit, and when people were starting to think of it as a thing, we saw an immediate, I would say, like maybe 20-30% drop in an already slow time, and then within a week that went down to 50%. Like 50% business was just cut in half, 50%, right? And with not really knowing why. So, like, is this just a slow day? Is this just like a slow couple of days? Because that kind of happens sometimes. And but then it was happening, and that was probably, I kind of tried to block it all out of my head, but that was early March. And then when it got really well known what was happening, even though it wasn't local yet, that's when consumer behavior really just took a turn. And again, it went from like 50% down to like 40%, down to like, then on that Monday before St. Patrick's Day, when the governor had the press conference and announced closings, then it of course got even more serious. And at that time, everybody was, and we're still kind of reeling, kind of trying to figure out what to do. But there's so many layers. Of course, human health, public safety is the number one concern, primary concern. But once we realize that this is something medically, that we will get a hold of at some point and get control of, you start to think about, okay, what's life on the other side of this, as everyone's staying physically safe, trying to stay physically safe. What is the ramifications of this and the economic impact of this? When we had to make the decision at that time, and do we close? Do we open? What's the right thing to do? What's the responsible thing to do? And our responsibility and right, those are perspective, right? There's no 100%. Although some people would lead you to believe that because of their convictions, and I don't fault them for that, that they believe that this is the 100% right thing to do, but everyone's reality is unique and everyone's situation is unique. And we just didn't have the means, to close, although we thought we were going to have to 100%. It was a tough decision because I'm like, how do I not be open and survive this? I don't know. Like financially, I don't know how to survive this. And there was talk of aid at the time. There was talk that there would be help. They would have to do something, right? But that was March. That was the beginning of March, right? And we're just starting to see aid packages. We're just starting to see loans start to come into actualization now, and it's almost May, right? So 2.5 months uh, of wondering if you're going to make it or not, and having a workforce. We had almost 30 people in each restaurant, and having to, what do I do if these people are depending on me? How do, some of those are my mother and my father, my sister, some of my best friends that have been with me for 15 plus years, and these people that are depending on me for their livelihood, and their children are depending on me for their livelihood. What do I do? And it was, and it's still tough, but in the beginning it was so hard because there was so much pressure. Do this is the right thing to do that's the right thing to do. And we decided to try to do what I've always done, and tried to stay open and feed the neighborhood, feed the community. And it was a difficult decision, and we had to jigger a lot of different things, but to try to do it in a capacity that was safe and legal, and able to navigate. But we had to lay off um, almost 50 people, and that hurt. For me, like, my staff is everything to me. Just like my community, my staff is, it's like my team, and then my team outside of the internal core team. And uh, that broke my heart. And um, I'm still trying to figure out how to handle that and how to do that. And uh, we've just been trying to figure this out, and it's so hard because the people that you're supposed to be leaning on are trying to turn to, talk to this person. They're gonna, want to throw anybody under the bus, but talk to this person because they're gonna be able to help you with this situation. And you call that person, and they don't know what's going on. And whether it's the bank or the SBA, or whether it's your elected official, or whether it's this agency or that agency, and nobody knows what's going on. Everyone's trying their hardest, but the ground is moving underneath everybody's feet.
That's exactly the problem. I mean, there's just so many unknowns. I mean, I get calls, Publix Radio calls me. Yesterday was WPRI, and my answer most of the time is I don't know. We just don't know.
Which is the honest answer.
The honest answer, absolutely. And I realized, folks want to know more, but such a moving target right now, and it's such a mystery to a lot of people.
And that's sort of where we're at right now. And like, we had to make some really hard decisions in the beginning, and um, close Westminster. And at first it was temporary, and then it became very quickly apparent that it was more than that, and it was going to be permanent. And my partner and and we're both going through these hardships, and looking at what's going on, um, and with no end in sight and no understanding of how we're going to get out of that. We were still within our, I almost, we didn't even hit a year, and then this tidal wave came. And um, well, I had to make the decision that we weren't going to be able to reopen there, because the whole, and the oppression of the enormity of it all, was, and the financial enormity of it all was just going to be something that didn't make sense. And so the last year of my life just up in smoke, and all these amazing, incredible people that have come to work with us, and that these relationships that we've developed, and this so much energy and time that has gone into that project, to be, just up in smoke like that. it's still hard, and this is like this is probably the first time that I've talked about it publicly. It's still really hard for me, and I've just been focusing on just trying to keep my head buried and try to stay alive, keep the restaurant, keep Broadway open, and just cooking and just like submersing myself in cooking and trying to cook for the staff, both staffs, the whole staff, and trying to cook for the community, and just do what we can, like through the power of food, and try to support, create at least enough, um, you know, uh, food and energy and income to keep it going. And we've heavily had to rely on the public to support us for that. And but the public reception has been phenomenal, and it's really gotten me through a lot of dark spots over the last couple months, and just so much love and thankfulness to everybody out there who has written texts and emails and instant messages, with words of support, and all the people that have supported our GoFundMe page, and the people that are ordering takeout, or just like some people handwriting cards and letters, and uh, just means absolute world to me. And um, it gives me hope, and it has given me hope, and just trying to kind of resubmersed in cooking, and um, trying to that tactileness of food, and again, like that just power of the hearth, of baking bread, of just serving people and sharing food and sustenance, and if anything comes out of all this on the other side, and hopefully it's that people have realized the importance of gathering around a table, and how meaningful food is to their life, and the act of getting together is. And that although there's so much to figure out and navigate from here, if we're ever going to get to where we need to be and still be on the other side, I think that's one of that sort of spiritual Gatorade table that's keeping me going right now.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
But it's crazy right now. I mean, we're doing takeout at Broadway. Where we've just stripped it down, in the beginning, the first couple weeks. I didn't pay myself, but it was just myself and two cooks, or one cook, two cooks, and then two server managers, and then we added we brought another team member back, and then last week I brought back two more people, so we're up to nine people back right now, which hopefully we can get back to full capacity sooner rather than later. But we're chipping away and trying to put a dent in it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that with us. Absolutely. I want to. Before I get to these questions here, I want to go to something. I want to go to something a little lighter that I've got. Let me see if I've got it here. And
hopefully it's not too embarrassing.
No. So.
Oh, there we go.
We're gonna talk a little bit about this. I've got this picture, and of course, let's this one here.
Yeah.
A little bit of rosé bubbles, and then I want to let's see if I can show this here. Hold on one second.
Can you hear? I'm taking a cocktail break.
So that was a little bit of you singing there.
Yeah, it was a barbecue last year or the year
Yeah,
before.
that was 2019. Yeah, that was last October.
Yeah, that was like that was a fun encore song. We get the guys from Smith and Whedon and the Turn for the Worst come up and sing a fun Rolling Stones song. So it was a good time.
Yeah, really fun. All right, let's see what people have asked here. A lot of comments. Joe Ravelli, 30 minutes away, Rhode Island, spoiled with seafood, but we are. It's absolutely true. Lots of nice comments here. Grace Lentini is asking, what dishes do you make with the so-called invasive species?
Uh, I think it really depends on the fish. You know, everything has a different texture and flavor. So depending on the season, depending on the individual fish, um, but when I'm trying to get somebody to try something that I really want them to try, right? Again, it's about communication, it's about comfort, it's about trying to meet people in the middle. I will usually pick a preparation. If the ingredient is something people are um, not 100% aware of or comfortable with, or have something that they're like that jumps out at them, I'll try to pick a preparation that I think so that it's going to resonate with people. One of the things that we fall back on are two really really comfort food staples for us, and risotto and polenta. Right, we've got incredible corn here in Rhode Island, and we get great cornmeal. So polenta has been one of those staple things, and it's also just a delicious porridgey thing, and that's a great way to make fun dishes that are accessible for people. When I pick like an ingredient or preparation that matches like one of those species like bluefish or monkfish back in the day. People are much more comfortable with monkfish now, but like years ago, 5, 10, 15 years ago, that was something that people wouldn't eat. Bluefish is a great example.
Yeah, bluefish. Yeah.
People only thought you could have it in pate, but when we started serving it, and I started serving it in steaks and grilling it, or serving it with with or as part of like a dish like say risotto, or like on a with asparagus in springtime, I picked something that I knew people would like, and that would at least say they would go, oh, like, well, I like that, so I'll give that a try. I'll try that because there's that one thing. So I think hopefully that answers the question. But I think it really depends on the time of year, and it also depends on the different species.
Right. All right, and before we go, I've got a little lightning round. I was trying to think, I want to make this, lighter and fun. And I thought of, as I was mulling through my mind at different talk shows, I thought of James Lipton and Inside the Actor Studio, and how he used that. He modified it, but he used that Bernard Pivot questionnaire. So I grabbed that questionnaire and I added 2 of my own in there. So I modified it a bit. So here we go. Are you ready? Lightning round. First answer that comes to your mind.
All right.
All right. What is your favorite word?
Fuck.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh God. Katie said delish. Oh.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Taxes. Go ahead. Yeah.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Our lives.
Yeah. So blessed. God. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess one word, fast. Passion.
What turns you off?
Ignorance.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Yeah. You've established that one.
Also, I'm a big fan of the C word too, but I know that's
Well, yeah.
It's a family affair.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh God, yeah. I guess I was gonna say it's a toss up between the sound of slicing crispy pork belly, but I have to say that's second to my daughter laughing. She's got the most infectious laugh. Like daughter Essie, actually both of them too. But
Yeah, don't ever pick.
yeah.
And what sound noise do you hate?
Hmm. Sound or noise do I hate? Oh God, it's got to be glass breaking.
What is your favorite ingredient?
Hmm. It's toss up between pork and potatoes, but I'm gonna have to go with pork.
Nice. Ambry will be happy. What is your least favorite ingredient?
That's hard. Um, Least favorite ingredient. Oh, God, I love food. I don't. That's a good question. What's my least favorite ingredient?
Got to be something.
Hmm.
Something's just a pain, or
Hmm. Impossible burgers. No.
I'll accept that. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I think music. For me, it's always been food and music.
And what profession would you not like to do?
Hmm. Can I say restaurants? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Oh, the love hate.
Politics.
And then finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Rare or medium rare?
Very nice, Derek. Very nice. Thank you very, very much for your time tonight. This has been a blast.
Can
I
I
really
can I
appreciate it.
give my tonight's imbibement has been brought to you by Nick's on Broadway's cocktail kits. The
There you
lady
go.
worked really hard on the spicy Paloma kit, and this has been fueling our conversation tonight. So
That's fantastic. So this is live right now, as we know, but I'll also be archiving it, so it'll be on the Facebook page. I'll tag you, the Instagram, the YouTube, all of that. And so you should definitely get to the page and see a lot of these great comments that people have been leaving. There's very nice comments from a lot of folks here. A lot of our friends have been on here. So and then my next one is Sunday evening, 7 p.m. with Susan Denise, our friend Susan. We're going to talk wine and love and all of that stuff. And thanks again, man. It's great to see you.
you're welcome, David. It's my pleasure. Always great to talk to you. Even though we
Yeah,
can't be together, at least we can be together. What would we do without Zoom, huh?
I
And
know. Zoom, text, all these great technologies keeps us together. I think that's the key.
so much love to everybody out there, and stay safe, be strong, and we love you all. And thank you again for your support, and thank you again for everybody fighting the good fight. So cheers.
Thank you. Thank you and good night.
Good night.